Today I'm going to depart from our normal conversation and I'm going to talk about what I think is a little discussed mindset of massive success. Okay, so in my opinion, there's kind of tiers of success. I've really noticed this in dealing with friends and clients over the years. People tend to rise up to a certain level and they tend to plateau. And then there's kind of another level and they tend to plateau. And there's kind of, you could quantify this in terms of, say, financial success, but the truth is it applies to if we're talking about, in sports, if we're talking about in terms of relationships, in terms of, whatever. We reach some level that it's like that's satisfying to us, and then we tend not to go beyond that. Or, it requires a change and we don't make that change because, hey, look, we're wired for, complacency, basically. The brain is a miser, it tries to conserve energy, and so it doesn't like uncertainty, so hence, we're not going to switch things up very much. But the truth is that if we want to achieve big things in life, then we have to. So there's a certain mental model for processing information, for processing the world, that I think people don't talk about so much, but is kind of useful. I think that it makes us better, although it doesn't necessarily make our lives easier, probably makes them harder. And it certainly makes the world better. So I want to talk about it today. And hopefully, you guys will share your thoughts about it, what you think. And this is really concerning the subject of how do you decide what to do? Okay, it's kind of like a decision-making framework about opportunities to pursue, about directions to take in life, about sacrifices that you're willing to make, etc. Okay, that is kind of the topic for today's conversation. So before we get started, if you haven't already, please hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell. We appreciate your subscription. We're trying to grow this channel. I try to produce great content every day and hope you won't miss out on it. You can check out some of our previous videos. We got lots of content here. And if you're interested at all in the topics that we talk about international corporate structuring, international living, so figuring out what is the best solution for you, and then how to implement it and help you with forming companies, opening bank accounts, getting residencies, citizenships, payment processing, hiring people, etc. So if you're interested in any of that stuff, please reach out to me. You can book a call, clarity.fm/Michael Rosmer. There's a link in the description below, or you can check out our websites, offshorecitizen.net, offshorecapitalist.com. Let's move on. And before I go on, you may notice I have this Solutions Podcast t-shirt on. This is like another YouTube channel I have. You can check it out if you're interested. I hope there's really cool, interesting conversations we try to do on that channel, and so hopefully you like it. All right. So this mindset, I think, for me, is I contrast two ways of looking at the world and two ways of decision making. Right? Most people who I think don't necessarily achieve big things in life take a likelihood-based approach, right? So they say, hey, listen, I'm not going to do that because the likelihood of success is low, right? The other one is looking at the upside, okay? So the upside view, if you want to achieve big things in life, the probability that you will achieve big things by taking the upside view is much higher than taking the likelihood view, okay? This does not mean that the probability that you'll achieve big things is high. In fact, I'm going to emphasize that it is quite the opposite, okay? Quite the opposite. But to me, there is a basic kind of mental framework for thinking of life that drives us towards this one. And that is this simple fact. You only get one shot at life, okay? So to me, life is not like going to the gym. If I go to the gym and I work out a little bit and, I'm like, I did pretty good. I'm going to come back tomorrow and I'm going to do a little bit better, right? I can incrementally improve. Life is not like that. I don't get to be like, hey, listen, I'm trying life this time and, okay, I put in like 60% effort. I did okay. Next time I'm going to do a little bit better at it. There's a very reasonable chance. As far as we know, we have no information about the ability to do it over again, right? Maybe some people believe in reincarnation or something. Certainly there's no tangible objective evidence which demonstrates any of that stuff, right? So the best of our knowledge, we get one shot at life. And as far as I'm concerned, if you only get one shot at it, you should make the most of it. This is like the basic mindset, right? You get one shot at life, so give it your all. Make the most of it. And I think it's just a horrible thing to sit on your deathbed and to think, I could have done better. What a terrible place to be. Terrible. I just don't, I think it's not a good mindset. And some people may not process it that way, but I think that it's a great thing to be able to say, hey, I gave it my all. And the interesting thing is, whether you succeeded or failed, being able to say to yourself, I gave it my all. I really lived. I really pushed the bounds. That's like, there's a certain satisfaction there. There's a certain fulfillment that comes with that, right? So when I sit and I look at that, that's the first part of this mental framework. The second part of the mental framework is the idea that of acceptability, right? So if I say, hey, listen, I'm going to give it my all, it means I'm going to shoot really high, right? And what that means is where I am today is probably not acceptable. And this is not how people process life, right? Most people process life as in this way. They say, hey, where I'm at is pretty good, or at least it's not pretty bad. And if I go and I try doing something different, then I could fail. And then I could go from not too bad to bad. And so that's bad, that's a risk, right? Versus I have the possibility of going up here. So I'm comparing the certainty of pretty good with the uncertainty of better, and the, in some cases, probability, depending on how you're processing it, of things being worse, right? I think when you think about life that way, that causes you to make decisions that are not going to carry you really far forward. So I think about, we can look at this in investing, right? If I buy a bond, right, maybe I'm going to get, I don't know, 10%, right? So it's a good bond, I'm getting 10%. The problem is 10% is the best I can do, right? So there's certain things that we do in life that there's a best you can do. That's just it. That's your ceiling, right? It's not going to get any better. If I go and I'm a janitor, or I'm a welder, or I'm, whatever, something else, there's a best that I can be in that space, right? Doesn't matter if I'm the best in the world, that's the best that I can be. And so the question then becomes, well, is the best that I can be acceptable? And if it's not, I should probably change something, right? And it's not that by doing something different, I'm likely to succeed at getting higher. That's not the idea. The idea is I'm setting up for myself that where I'm at is not acceptable, right? I'm better than this. I can bring more. If I'm going to live full out, this is not the way it's going to be. Now, this is challenging for yourself, right? This is not a way to put yourself through emotional pleasure, right? It's certainly much better or much easier to sit there and say, hey, I'm pretty good. I'm better than 90% of my peers. I'm pretty happy with that. All right, let's just enjoy life. I just think, if you want to achieve big things, and not everybody does, I think they should aspire to achieving at least more than they're at, right? Like to me, the most basic mental thinking is that you should think, hey, listen, I'm going to be a little bit better next year than I am this year. My company is going to be a little bit better next year than it is this year. My relationships are going to be a little bit better next year than they are this year. My health is hopefully going to be a little bit better next year than this year. That's one's a little bit harder because we're aging. But that's like the most basic kind of standard for ourselves is improvement, right? And some people, I'll have some people will say to me, hey, listen, you're never going to achieve perfection. And it's like, the idea is not to achieve perfection. The idea is to achieve progress. And pretty much wherever you're at, you can improve, right? But some things just, your ability to go far with them are not great, right? So by contrast, I might buy into an investment and the chances that it might succeed very high might be low, right? But the payoff, if it does succeed, might be 100x, right? I would rather take those types of bets. Now, there's some caution in terms of being able to sprinkle yourself between those bets, etc. But asking myself the basic question, in this path that I'm on, what is the best that can happen? And if the best that can happen from that path isn't good enough, then I should probably change paths, right? That just kind of to me makes sense. At the same time, the way that I'm going to deal with this is instead of thinking of, hey, things are pretty good here and they could be bad, instead I'm going to think, hey, listen, my standard is up here, so everything below this standard is unacceptable. So it doesn't really matter whether I'm here or here, it's still unacceptable. Meaning that if I fail, the worst thing that happens is I'm somewhere unacceptable. But I'm already somewhere unacceptable by my standards, right? So what's the difference? It's not that big a difference. On the contrast, there's a possibility, slim though it might be, that I can achieve something bigger. I had this experience with relationships. I remember at one point in time, I was a little bit terrified about committing. And I thought to myself, I remember going off for a walk, I was in Belgrade at the time, and I just thought to myself, it was like, I was taking on quite a bit of, for me, it was like personally challenging what I was gonna do. But I just kind of realized, I was like, I wanted to back off. And I thought to myself, like, I know what lies behind me. And that's not what I want for myself. So what I know is that everything I want is on the other side of this fear. And maybe I will fail, right? But what I want is not behind me. So the only choice that I have is to give it a shot going through. And I think if you live your life that way, it's going to just open up a multiplicity of doors to where you don't know where it's going to lead. But it has just, that is like where opportunity lies. That is where like the skies open up. That is where, I don't want to say freedom, but freedom, opportunity, all of the like juice of life lies on that other side. So anyway, this is my opinion. This is not a way that I commonly hear people thinking, but I do really think very strongly that mental models and how we process life, how we process the world, how we process business are important. And if we process it in certain ways, it's going to tilt our thinking in a particular direction. And so if I want to tilt my thinking in a direction that is going to bring me to something amazing, something that very few people can even dream of, I have to process this accordingly. And I think this is like a very effective framework for processing in that regard. So anyway, tell me what you guys think. I would love to hear from you. I'm sure, there's probably an unpopular opinion amongst a lot of people. A bunch of people probably say, hey, listen, it's much better off to play it safe. It's much better off not to take risk. It's much better off to, go with work the probabilities over time. Fair enough. Tell me that. Tell me I'm wrong. Share with me your life philosophies. And yeah, if you are interested, please hit the subscribe button, give it a thumbs up if you like it, share it with your friends, check out our other videos, and I'm going to see you guys on the next video.